This story contains disturbing details of real violence. It is shared to honor the victim and tell the truth of what happened. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
This is a story of 2 births and 2 deaths. The first birth was in 1968, when a baby girl entered the world already damaged by her mother's drinking. The second came 36 years later, when that same woman used a kitchen knife to cut a baby from another woman's womb. One life began in tragedy and grew into it. The other was born through tragedy and lived to tell it. Between these 2 births lies a haunting question. When does a victim become a villain?
Before we dive in, do me one quick favor. If this story pulls you in, hit the like button and subscribe. It takes 1 second, but it helps these cases reach thousands more people who need to see them.
Bobbie Jo Stinnett was waiting for a woman named Darlene Fisher. The woman was coming to see her rat terrier puppies. She wanted to buy one. It's the kind of transaction that unfolds 1,000 times daily across small-town America, as ordinary as morning coffee. Someone spots a post online, makes contact, arranges a visit. Simple, safe, routine as breathing, except when it isn't. When the knock arrived, Bobbie opened the door to a warm smile and welcomed death inside. She brought out the puppies, crouching down with the gentle enthusiasm of someone who genuinely loved these compact, intelligent dogs, letting her visitor choose. This is what trust looks like in its purest form. A pregnant woman 8 months along, radiant and vulnerable in her own home, showing off squirming puppies to a stranger from the internet, believing in the fundamental decency of human nature. Then everything shattered. As Bobbie bent over, a rope slipped around her neck. It tightened fast and hard. 8 months pregnant, she didn't stand a chance. She hit the floor, clawing at the rope, gasping for air. Then came the unthinkable. The woman pulled out a kitchen knife. She cut into her stomach, took the newborn, and left. It was broad daylight on December 16, 2004. The kind of cold, ordinary Thursday afternoon when nothing terrible is supposed to happen, when evil should wait for darkness, when monsters should respect the sun's presence. She drove away from the small town of Skidmore, Missouri, holding the baby she'd carved from another woman's womb. The baby survived. That's the miracle wrapped inside this nightmare. The one small mercy in a story drowning in cruelty. Bobbie Jo had planned to meet her mother that day. When she didn't show up, Becky decided on an impromptu visit. These surprise drop-ins had become tradition since Bobbie Jo started her maternity leave. A coffee, some gossip, maybe folding baby clothes together while debating names. The front door was open, not kicked in, not splintered by violence, just open, unlocked, trusting. That's what made her heart drop, what sent ice through her veins. Because something about an open door in winter feels catastrophically wrong. Inside, she found a horror no mother should ever witness. Her daughter's body motionless on the floor, and the baby gone, stolen. She called 911, barely able to form words through the screaming. One dispatcher later said, "I never want to hear that sound again." And you have to wonder what it takes to break someone whose entire job is listening to the worst moments of people's lives. What threshold of horror must be crossed to haunt even the professionals? The nation reeled. We tell ourselves we're desensitized, that nothing shocks us anymore in an age of endless headlines screaming violence. But this reached through screens and grabbed people by the throat, refusing to let go.
The woman's real name was Lisa Montgomery. She wasn't a nurse or a midwife or anyone with medical training, anyone qualified to hold a scalpel near human flesh. She had studied cesarean sections online, Googling instructions like someone else might research a recipe, which tells you everything about where we exist as a society. You can learn to do almost anything on the internet, including the unspeakable. This wasn't a moment of madness, a snap decision made in passionate rage, a crime born from sudden fury. She had brought a syringe, a rope, a knife, a clamp. She had packed a murder kit with the methodical precision of someone packing a picnic basket, checking items off a list while her pulse stayed steady. Lisa had pretended to be pregnant for months. She joined online dog breeding forums like Ratter Chatter and befriended Bobbie Jo with calculated patience, posting about her own phantom pregnancy, twins she'd claimed, 8 months along, one lost in utero. She saw an opportunity in Bobbie Jo's kindness and seized it with both hands. This is the cold part, the detail that makes your skin crawl and your stomach turn. She didn't just kill on impulse. She chose her victim like selecting produce at a market. She planned. She waited. She rehearsed the route from Kansas to Skidmore the day before, memorizing turns. Behind this calculated brutality stood a deeply fractured woman who was falling apart at the seams. Days before the murder, Lisa's ex-husband and stepbrother Carl threatened to expose her lie. He was seeking custody of their children, and he knew the truth. Lisa had been desperately hiding. She had been faking her pregnancy. The belly was prosthetic padding. The ultrasounds were stolen images from Google. The due date was fiction written in her calendar. She had told her new husband, Kevin Montgomery, she was expecting, spinning elaborate stories about doctor visits and baby kicks. But Carl knew she couldn't possibly be pregnant. Lisa had been sterilized years earlier. Her mother had demanded she undergo the procedure after their 4th child. She was 26 when the surgery stole her fertility. Eventually, Carl left her. Lisa met Kevin Montgomery afterward, experiencing kindness for perhaps the first time. But trauma doesn't heal simply because abuse ends. Her fractured mind developed pseudocyesis, phantom pregnancy. Her body manifested symptoms: swollen belly, morning sickness, ceased menstruation. She believed the lie her body told. When Carl learned of her pregnancy with Kevin, he saw opportunity. He would use this delusion to win custody of their remaining children. Lisa needed a baby to make the lie true. Think about that for a second. Your own mother forcing you to be sterilized, to have your ability to create life surgically removed. That's not normal dysfunction, not typical family drama. That's another level of cruelty entirely. The kind that carves wounds too deep for healing. That threat, combined with years of accumulated pain she had never processed, trauma piled on trauma until her psyche could no longer bear the weight, pushed Lisa over the edge into darkness. Bobbie Jo Stinnett was born December 4th, 1981, and at 23 she'd already discovered what made her soul sing. She and her husband Zeb ran Happy Haven Farms, breeding ratter terriers, not for profit or recognition, but because she genuinely loved these energetic, intelligent dogs with fierce devotion. She'd upload photos of squirming puppies online, their eyes still sealed shut, chat with fellow enthusiasts on Ratter Chatter, defend people in disputes at dog shows with passionate loyalty. That was Bobbie Jo. Trusting, kind, the type who'd saw the best in people even when the world gave her reasons not to. Who'd wrap strangers in bear hugs until they became friends. In Skidmore, everybody knew her. Real nice girl, people said, their voices soft with affection. Real pretty. Quiet until you earned her trust, then she'd fill your kitchen with laughter that bounced off walls and settled in your bones. She and Zeb had married at the Skidmore Christian Church, exchanged vows while half the town wept happy tears, built a life together with determination and dog hair. By December 2004, they were 8 months away from their greatest joy. A baby girl they'd already named Victoria Jo, whispering secrets to her through Bobbie Jo's growing belly.
Bobbie Jo was glowing with that radiance people describe in pregnant women, except with her,
It wasn't a cliché, but visible truth. You know that thing people say about expectant mothers emanating happiness? With her, it was real, tangible, something you could feel when she walked into a room. Her father later said that even after everything, even after the nightmare that cannot be undone, Victoria's survival meant a small portion of Bobbie Jo will live on. A small portion. Such inadequate words for such enormous loss. She never got to hold her baby in those crucial first moments, never got to count 10 perfect fingers, or memorize her daughter's face, or see her first smile breaking across tiny features. All the things she'd been waiting for, preparing for, dreaming about since seeing those double lines on a pregnancy test, stolen in an afternoon. Because murder isn't merely about ending a life, stopping a heartbeat. It's about stealing everything that life was supposed to become, every birthday, every achievement, every ordinary Tuesday morning. It's about the future that will never exist. Lisa's life didn't begin with violence. It started with tragedy, with damage inflicted before she even drew her first breath. Born February 27, 1968, to Judy Shaughnessy, Lisa entered the world already broken. Brain damage, likely from her mother's drinking throughout pregnancy. Fetal alcohol syndrome so severe it scrambled her neural wiring permanently. So before Lisa even took her first breath, before she had any choice in the matter, she was already behind. Already struggling with learning disabilities, memory gaps, emotional regulation, and communication struggles she'd battle every single day. Her father abandoned the family when she was young. Her mother married 6 times, 6 different men, a revolving door of chaos and violence. New faces bringing new forms of abuse, none of them good, none of them safe. Her older sister Diane tried desperately to protect her, but Diane herself was being abused by a babysitter while Lisa lay beside her in bed, small and terrified. She volunteered herself so that the babysitter won't hurt Lisa. Think about being a child in that situation, in that darkness, hearing what's happening to your sister, understanding something is fundamentally wrong, but being too small, too powerless, too paralyzed by fear to do anything about it. When social workers finally came because someone, somewhere noticed something amiss, they took Diane away to safety and left Lisa behind in hell. Diane vomited in fear as the car drove away, her body rejecting what her mind knew. Because she understood with terrible clarity, she knew exactly what was about to happen to her little sister. Her worst fears came true with brutal precision. Lisa's stepfather, Jack Kleiner, began sexually abusing her when she was 11 years old. He smothered her with pillows until she nearly suffocated, slammed her small head against concrete until her skull cracked, leaving lasting brain injuries layered on top of the ones she was born with. Damage visible decades later in brain scans. He later built a secret room onto their trailer, specifically to continue his abuse in private, away from potential witnesses. A secret room. Like something out of a horror movie, except this was real life in rural Missouri. And the monster was someone who was supposed to protect her, to be her father. The place had no running water, no basic sanitation. It was filthy, flies buzzing through stagnant air, remote, forgotten. And so was Lisa. A child disappeared while living in plain sight. One day Lisa's mother walked in on the abuse and you think finally someone will help this suffering child. But no. Judy didn't walk in to protect her daughter, to stop the nightmare. She walked in to scream and pull a firearm on her own 11-year-old child, pressing cold metal to her small head. How could you do this to me? Making herself the victim, making her daughter the perpetrator. Let that sink in slowly. Let it fully register. Your daughter is being systematically tortured and abused, and your response is to blame her for it, to threaten her life, to make her abuse about your wounded pride. It got worse. Lisa was traded for plumbing work, repairs, favors, like a commodity at a swap meet.
Her mother and stepfather let other men hurt her, invited them into that secret room. Sometimes they filmed it, preserving her degradation on tape. They sold their daughter like she was nothing, like she was merchandise, instead of a human child who needed love and safety.
Lisa shut down emotionally, her mind fragmenting to survive. And who wouldn't? When everyone who's supposed to love you treats you like garbage, you learn that you are garbage. When your body is violated thousands of times, you learn that your body isn't yours. You learn that you don't matter, that you're not worth protecting, that the world is a place of pain and no one is coming to save you. She became withdrawn, disconnected from reality, floating somewhere between consciousness and dissociation. She started drinking at 13, because what child wouldn't desperately want to escape that hell, however they could, to numb the unbearable? She developed serious, untreated mental illness, severe PTSD, bipolar disorder, dissociative identity disorder, and epilepsy. Her brain was literally breaking under the accumulated weight of what was being done to her, fracturing into pieces that could never quite fit back together. Even doctors and teachers noticed something was catastrophically wrong, but no one stepped in. No one saved her. And this is the part that haunts me, that keeps me awake with cold rage, because how many people saw the signs and did nothing? How many adults looked the other way, chose their comfort over her survival? At around 18, Lisa was married off to her stepbrother, Carl Bowman, the son of her mother's third husband, because, apparently, the situation wasn't twisted enough already, wasn't sufficiently perverse. He hurt her too, beating and abusing her constantly. Abuse was the only language she'd ever been taught, the only interaction she understood. They had 4 children together. They lived in conditions that would make you weep. Holes in the floor, no plumbing, children sleeping on the ground like animals. Lisa was repeating the only life she knew, the only blueprint for existence she'd been given. After her 4th child, Lisa's mother forced her to be sterilized at 26 years old. It broke whatever small part of Lisa was still holding on, whatever tiny fragment was still hoping for something better, still believing she could be different from her mother. That destruction obliterated it. She began creating fake pregnancies after that, announcing due dates, picking baby names, planning baby showers, her belly swelling with phantom symptoms. These weren't just lies told for attention. They felt real to her, manifestations of pseudocyesis, a condition where the mind is so desperate for pregnancy that the body creates the symptoms. Her traumatized mind was doing what shattered minds do, creating an alternate reality because the real one was unbearable, too painful to inhabit. By the time she met Bobbie Jo online, Lisa had moved 61 times, 61 different addresses, 61 fresh starts that never took. That's not bad luck or financial trouble or normal instability. That's someone running from demons that live inside their own head, trying desperately to outrun pain that travels with you everywhere. Her mental state was fragile, balanced on a knife's edge, but she had no help. No therapy to process her trauma, no medication to stabilize her brain chemistry, no support system to catch her when she fell. Just a lifetime of accumulated pain and a damaged brain that couldn't take any more weight. Then came the final break, the threat of being exposed as a liar, as someone faking pregnancy again. And for Lisa, that exposure meant losing everything. Her new husband, Kevin Montgomery, her children, her last shred of dignity and identity. The next day, December 16, 2004, Lisa killed Bobbie Jo and stole her baby. When police arrived at Bobbie Jo's home in Skidmore, they found her dead and the baby missing. Immediately, it was clear that this was a targeted abduction. The scene showed no signs of a struggle outside the immediate area, meaning Bobbie Jo likely knew her killer or had let them in voluntarily. In Bobbie Jo computer history, it showed she had been active on the dog breeding forums and email lists for Ratter Chatter. She had posted messages and responded to inquiries about puppies up until the very morning of her murder. Investigators found an email exchange between Bobbie Jo and someone named Darlene Fisher, who had arranged to come see a puppy that day. The email read something like, "I'll be there around lunchtime to see the puppies." This was the same time frame Bobbie Jo was killed.
Investigators obtained the email headers and traced the message's IP address. It pointed to a location in Melbourne, Kansas, the home of Lisa Montgomery. Police tracked Lisa's IP address and found her in Kansas, cradling a newborn, claiming she had just given birth to the child, whom she named Abigail. Her story disintegrated immediately under the gentlest scrutiny. She confessed within hours, the lies crumbling like sand. At trial, everything unraveled. Catastrophic barely covers it. Lisa's defense collapsed under the weight of its own dysfunction. Her attorneys ignored vital evidence about her mental health, proof and expert testimony that could have shown the jury who Lisa really was, a woman so profoundly damaged that death should never have been an option. Lisa had every reason to mistrust men. Every man in her life had taken something from her: her safety, her body, her voice. Yet the system handed her over to an all-male defense team. It was like assigning arsonists to put out a fire, or wolves to guard the sheep. Then came Judy Clark, a nationally respected trauma specialist and defense attorney. She did what no one else could. She earned Lisa's fragile trust. For the first time, Lisa began to open up, to let someone see the shattered architecture of her mind. The lead attorney pushed Clark aside, dismissed her insights, silenced the one person who might have saved Lisa's life. Lisa fell apart again, regressing before everyone's eyes. In his closing argument, her lawyer didn't even make a coherent case for mercy. He read a poem. A poem! Your client is facing the death penalty. Her life hangs in the balance, and you read poetry like you're at an open mic night. The prosecutors dismissed her horrific past, her documented brain damage, her decades of torture, as mere excuses, as if systematic childhood sexual violence and physical brain injury were just something to brush aside inconveniently. It took the jury just 5 hours to convict her and recommend the death penalty. 5 hours to decide someone should die. That's less time than a standard work shift, less time than it takes to drive to another state. In prison, Lisa received psychiatric care for the first time in her entire existence. She was 36 years old. Think about that. 36 years of untreated mental illness, of unprocessed trauma stacked like cordwood, of a broken brain trying desperately to function in the world. And only when she was locked in a cage, convicted of murder, did anyone finally try to help her heal. She stabilized under proper treatment. She stayed in touch with her children, became a grandmother, expressed deep, genuine regret for what she had done. For the first time in her life, Lisa Montgomery was something approaching okay, something resembling functional. More than 1,000 mental health experts asked for mercy, for her sentence to be commuted. 1,000 professionals who understand trauma and brain development and human behavior said collectively, this woman should not die. But the request was denied. On January 13, 2021, Lisa Montgomery was executed by lethal injection, the first woman executed by the federal government in nearly 70 years, a grim historical milestone. She died confused and childlike, her mind regressed to childhood. In her final days, she wrote letters in black crayon. Pens weren't allowed because apparently even facing execution, she might harm herself. A friend said Lisa would face her execution like a 5-year-old, too broken to fully understand what was happening. Outside the prison, some people cried for mercy. Others cheered for justice served. A friend of Bobbie Jo said, if I could pull the switch, I would. And you can't blame her. You really can't, because what happened to Bobbie Jo was unforgivable, irredeemable, a violation so profound it defies language. America was divided, unable to reach consensus. We like things simple, good guys wearing white hats and bad guys in black, victims and villains with clear boundaries. We don't like complicated stories about people who are both simultaneously.
Some saw Lisa as a monster,
evil incarnate. Others saw a woman shaped by tragedy, failed by every safety net that should have caught her: family, social services, mental health care, even her own defense team. And the uncomfortable truth is, they're both right. Both realities coexist, each as undeniable as the other. Lisa once told a sheriff, "I am a monster. This is a devil come back to earth, disguised as Lisa Montgomery." It was a confession soaked in self-awareness, but stripped of redemption. She understood what she had become, even if she no longer understood how she got there. Because the hardest truth of all is this: some people are not born monsters. They are made, slowly, deliberately, through years of neglect, cruelty, and pain too deep to name. Lisa's suffering doesn't excuse what she did. It doesn't lessen the horror or bring Bobbie Jo back, but it does help us see how horror like this takes root in the first place. In the end, Lisa didn't just destroy one life, she destroyed two: Bobbie Jo's, and, in a quieter, more haunting way, her own. Some asked, was she insane? Legally, no. And this is where the justice system grows murky, where the language of law fails to capture the complexity of reality. Lisa knew what she was doing. She planned it. She hid it. She fled. By every legal standard, that meant she was competent, accountable, guilty. But does planning really prove sanity? Can a person so deeply fractured, so hollowed out by years of torment, truly be called sound of mind? The law says yes. Reality says, not so simple. Some argued that Lisa's past dictated her actions, that her trauma erased her agency. But pain, however unbearable, is not an excuse to kill. If it were, half the world would be murderers. Millions of people suffer abuse, terrible, soul-destroying abuse that leaves scars invisible and permanent, and they choose not to harm anyone. They break the cycle against all odds. They get help. They survive without taking others down with them into darkness. Lisa said she was sorry. And perhaps she meant it. Perhaps she understood in her final years the magnitude of what she had taken. But remorse doesn't resurrect the dead. Sorry doesn't undo the sound of a mother's scream over the phone, or return Bobbie Jo to the life she should have had. Bobbie Jo never got to hold her baby, never heard her first cry, her first laugh, never saw her grow. She opened her door to kindness, welcomed a stranger into her home, and paid the highest price for her trust. Lisa repaid compassion with cruelty, trust with terror. So yes, someone can be both victim and perpetrator. Lisa was broken by her past, but that truth does not erase what she did. Both realities coexist and both matter. In the end, society had to choose. It chose the ultimate punishment. Whether that was fair or not, whether it made anything better, whether it served justice or merely vengeance, people still debate passionately, and probably always will. For the small town of Skidmore, Missouri, the echoes of that December afternoon will never fully fade into silence. Bobbie Jo Stinnett was not merely a headline, not just another true crime story to be consumed and forgotten. She was a beloved daughter, a devoted wife, a cherished friend. Her memory is honored by the quiet strength of her family, who navigated unimaginable grief and guarded the miracle of her surviving daughter, Victoria Jo, with fierce protectiveness. The true cost of this crime is not measured in legal battles or execution dates, but in the lifetime of moments Bobbie Jo missed: the first smile, the first steps, the first day of school, every milestone stolen. That stolen future is the deepest wound, a testament to the brutal and irreversible truth that violence tears holes not just in individual lives, but in the fabric of entire communities.
Therefore, when we speak of this case, when we revisit this story, we must always remember Bobbie Jo Stinnett first, the 23-year-old whose hope and kindness were so brutally betrayed, and whose enduring legacy is the life she gave, a life that triumphs over the darkness of her final day. Some stains never wash clean. Some stories never find peace. Some questions never find answers. But some lives, like Victoria Jo's, like the memory of her mother's radiance, refuse to be extinguished by evil's best efforts.
Thank you for watching and staying till the end. Every story we tell is a piece of someone's truth, and your support helps keep their voice alive. If you felt something today, don't just move on. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so together we can keep shining light into the darkest corners of the human mind.